Hi, I'm Melissa Case from Hat to Hem, and today I have to do a big project in a very short period of time. What else is new? So I am part of a collaboration that is doing a big project that we are going to release in December. I have no idea what order I'm releasing these videos in, if this will be out before we announce it or not, so I gotta keep it vague. But I need to make some 1860s undergarments. And I have like a day and a half to do it. My husband and our toddler are up visiting his parents this weekend. I have some alterations for a wedding that needs to be done for next week. But since the house is quiet, I figured I should take advantage and try and actually get this done and be able to talk to the camera and hopefully have a video at the end of this. So I am using Laughing Moon Mercantile's number 100 Ladies Victorian Underwear, 1840 to 1900, so we're covering a wide span of time here. And honestly, I'm not going to be too picky about it perfectly matching the 1860s. No one's going to see it. I just want to make sure I have all the right layers, including split drawers, which I've always kind of avoided wearing. So that's something I've made before, but I've never really worn. So that's going to be an interesting experience. I've actually never used this pattern before. So using this when I'm supposed to be making these in like a day seems a little bit risky, but here we are. I know this pattern is available to purchase, but I believe it's only digital now, so you would have to print it out yourself. So I apologize for that. You might be able to find a printed version on like Etsy or eBay or Amazon, but I'm going to link the actual Laughing Moon Mercantile website in the description below so you can get the pattern there. And then if you decide you want to find a print version, you might have to hunt a little bit. Anyway, enough talking. Let's make undergarments. Okay, so I've had this pattern for years. I've never used it. I don't think I've actually even really looked at it. So again, probably not the best choice for a one-day project, but oh well. Let's take a look here. Let's see, got the instructions. I wasn't expecting the instructions to be on a paper like this, so that's interesting. And possibly gigantic. Okay. Oh, color coded for our convenience. That's nice. Okay. Oh, these are huge. Okay. It's alright. We'll just take this one step at a time. It's a good thing I opened the instructions up because there was a pattern piece hiding in there. So, probably gonna need that. I don't know whose idea this was, but this was really the best option. Okay, so in theory, I could probably cut this up and make a booklet. However, that's taking valuable time. It doesn't feel worth it, and also I don't know if it would store properly in the packet I have. So this is what we got. One out of the way. Look at this. Oh. There's no good way of doing. There's no good way of showing you. It says, if you find the large size of these instructions unwieldy, you can cut them into a smaller size. You can cut on the blue and red lines. Pages will be 8.5 by 11. The page numbers are in the lower right-hand corner of every page. Once cut, you can either staple them together or keep them in a file. The cut instructions will fit back in the pattern bag for safekeeping. So, you know, at least they're self-aware. I think I actually will take the time to cut this because I feel like it will take almost more time to wrestle with this thing than it will be to just be able to flip the page over. So, excuse me. So they have, I think, 7 different ways to lay out this pattern depending on what size you're cutting. And I like that because it feels inclusive. It's not saying there's one size fits all. So I can appreciate that. I'm used to having to prep the pattern before starting a project. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've had to prep the pattern instructions, but it's worth it because it takes up a lot less space now. Okay, so despite my complaining earlier, this is actually a pretty cool pattern. First off, you have the typical, this is the pattern, these are the pieces you'll need kind of thing. But then you have, like I said earlier, all these pages about how to lay out the fabric depending on what size you need. There's plenty of charts for sizes and figuring all that out. I have a whole big old section about how to put this corset together. Well, both corsets, there's 2 of them. And then you have the drawers, the chemise, but then at the end you have all this extra material, some details about just research that went into this pattern and things that you can use, like the different corset fabric color and trims and all this good stuff. This is literally just pages and pages of information that you can use. And at the end they have supply houses, and I especially love this because you got some Philly representation. Go Birds. And then there's a bibliography with different books you can refer to and where they got their information. And then you have a whole page of corsets, chemise trim, drawers. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So I stapled these into 2 different packets, and part of why I did it was because I wasn't sure my little stapler was going to be able to handle the full amount. But second, I'll be able to use this to cut out the chemise and drawers, and I'll be able to just have just this packet to put everything together. Alright, so I'm going to grab something to eat, and then I'll get started. Hi, Maisie. Oh, who's a pretty girl? You're a pretty girl. High five. High five. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, you're a good girl. Are we just having a girls' weekend? Yeah, we having a girls' weekend. Where's Daddy and your brother? Did they go visit Grandma and Pop? Oh no, we're not going, honey. High five. High five again? No? I love you. Alright, so I've been debating which chemise to make, and I've been putting some thought into it, and I think I'm going to go with the little puff sleeve one. Is this accurate to the 1860s? I don't know. But this one is closer to what I make for my later Victorian bustle era chemises. And I have a Regency chemise that has a straight sleeve like this. So if I'm going to make a new one, I might as well make one that's a little bit different than the other ones, because otherwise, what's the point? That sounded bad, but you know what I mean. So we're going to go with the little puff sleeve, and then we got the drawers here. So taking a look at this, I'm going to need what pieces? So with that in mind, I am going to need most of the chemise pieces. And of course, I'm also going to need the drawers pieces. And I might as well just get them all traced at the same time. For those who are new to my channel, I like to trace my patterns because I like to keep them intact just in case I make a mistake or my size changes. And I won't go into the full details of how I trace my patterns. I'll leave a video in my description for that because I did make one a couple of months ago now. Wow, months. Time is flying. Speaking of time flying, today is flying, so I should probably get to work. So let's see, I'm going to need 38, 40, right? Okay, done with the pointed waistband or doing with the straight waistband? Straight would be quicker. Pointed might be more interesting. Let's go straight. We're gonna go straight because time is of the essence, and the bustle era ones I usually make are pointed. So again, let's make things a little bit different. Now I'm also gonna need to make a corset, but I don't know if I'm making the corset today. Corsets, I want to make sure it's fitted properly. It's been a while since I made myself a new corset, so I want to make sure it fits. So that might be a project for a day that is not today. Alright, I have my pattern pieces. Let's get this pattern done. I'm making my drawers out of muslin fabric, which is very easy to get, and it's already been pre-washed earlier this week. Okay, so now that I have all the pieces cut out, including the fabric, I'm looking at the instructions, and it says to stitch the tucks at 3/16. I'm looking at the instructions, and it says to stitch the tucks at 3/16. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Hang on. Alright, so 3/16, I guess that would be slightly bigger than 1/8, but not as big as 3/8. Not as big as 2/8, which would be 1/4. So smaller than that? That seems really small. Yeah, I don't even have anything that's in 16ths on here. Well, you know what? I am vertically challenged. So if I make the tucks a little bit larger than they're asking and make it at 1/4, I'll probably still be okay. And honestly, I'm kind of expecting to have to do more tucks because, once again, vertically challenged. So, yeah, I guess I'll give it a shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric over. So this right here is the bottom edge of one of the pant legs for the drawers. Legs? One of the legs. This is the bottom seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my measuring gauge. I'm going to measure down 1 inch from the top. I'm going to make sure it goes all the way across. I'm going to give it a nice press with my iron using lots of steam. And then I'm going to stitch it down at 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to press this flat, and now I'm going to press it up so the tuck is actually against the ironing board. Now the reason I'm doing it like this is so this tuck is nice and flat on this side. I noticed that sometimes if I folded the tuck first and pressed from this side, sometimes the fabric would just kind of buckle up a little bit, and I don't want that. So I press it from the wrong side first, and then I flip it over and I press it again from the correct side. Now from the second tuck, I'm going to place the fabric with the tuck against the ironing board again. I'm going to fold it up, and I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch from my stitch line. After checking that across the entire width of the fabric, I'm going to give it a good press. Then I just repeat the steps that I did previously with bringing it over to my sewing machine, stitching at 1/4 of an inch, bringing it back, and doing all those pressing steps that I did earlier. Then I repeat that several times until I have this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now the pattern called for 6 pleats. I did 7 because, once again, I am a bit on the short side, so I have to alter the pattern a little bit to accommodate the inches I don't have. Next I had to stitch the leg seams together. I chose to use a French seam, but you can probably use whatever your favorite seam finishing is. I'm sure it's fine. Then, very carefully, I finished the bottom with a very narrow hem. At this point, I could add lace, but I don't think that would be appropriate for the character I'm supposed to be portraying, so that's something I'm going to skip for now. I do have a little bit of lace for the corset and possibly the chemise, so if I have enough, I might add it to the drawers, but if I don't, the plain ones are very appropriate for what I'm going for. Now, if I were making closed drawers, this would be the point where I would stitch the 2 legs together. However, I'm making open drawers, so instead I am going to finish this whole big curved section with a little bit of bias tape that I cut from my fabric. I'm doing this by machine for speed. I could have used store-bought bias tape, but my fabric is a little bit softer than bias tape, and I figured I probably want a softer material where this is going to go. So that's why I opted to use the softer muslin fabric. Okay, so it's the end of day 1. I did not get as much done as I thought I would, and I have no one to blame but myself and my brain. But that's part of myself, so, you know. I took way too long cutting out the pattern because I kept getting distracted, or I think I actually ate 3 times. It's just in time it took me to cut out those pattern pieces, so. And now I'm at the point where I have 3 steps left for these drawers. I have to do the bias binding on one pant leg. I have to do the waistband. And there might be another step in there that I'm forgetting. waistband and ribbon. But the waistband's a multiple step process. And I just feel incapable of finishing it right now. It's like I'm stuck. Have you ever felt like that? Like you're just kind of like, yep, nope, not moving. It's not happening. Not in the stars today. I couldn't get in the zone. Like I have moments where I'm just like really fixated on something and I can really just work without interruption and be fine, and I couldn't do that today, which is annoying because I'm on a time crunch. And it has nothing to do with being under pressure because usually that helps me. But today, not so much. So I think the only thing I can do is go to bed and hope tomorrow will be better, because I think it will be a few hours before the family comes home. See, if I know my husband, and I do, then he will be home later tomorrow, especially if he hears that I did not get as much done as I thought I would. He will delay to try and give me more time. So, at least I have that tomorrow. And the prep work was done, and the prep work did take a lot of my mental energy today, even though it wasn't that difficult. It was just like 8 pattern pieces. My brain was saying nope. I mean, to be fair, there were some pretty big pattern pieces. If they weren't really big, they were kind of like curvy with the yokes and everything. So that's I'm gonna tell myself to make myself feel better. You're getting a nice view about how messy it is back there. It's a sewing room. It's gonna be messy. I need to stop apologizing for it. I guess I didn't actually apologize. So, I guess that's a step towards acceptance. I'm rambling because it's after 2 a.m. and it's been a while since I've been up working this late, so I should probably just go to bed. But you know what, that's alright, because I can keep working tomorrow and hopefully make more progress than I made today. Alright, see you in the morning. I'm starting on the chemise now, and step 1 involves stay stitching around the entire yoke, and it says it has to be a 1/2 inch in, which feels like a lot to me, but that's what the instructions say, so alright. I think part of it is I'm so used to sewing with 1/2 inch seam allowances, and the seam allowances for this are all 5/8 of an inch, so that probably has something to do with why it feels a little bit bigger than I'm used to. That's okay. Now that I have all the stay stitching done and I've attached the front and back at the shoulder, as well as pressing and clipping the seam allowance, I've decided I'm going to add a little bit of this crocheted lace around the edges. The thing is, the character that I'm inspired by, she's supposed to have some pretty plain undergarments. However, this feels right for her. I feel like if she had the opportunity to have this, she would go for it. So it's nothing too fancy, but hopefully it's just enough to add just a little bit of personality to the chemise. So I'm going to stitch along the center front and the neckline, go all the way around to the other side of the center front, and I'm just going to add this about a 1/2 inch away from the edge. Up next were the sleeves. I ran 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top and bottom of the sleeves. I'm really glad this is the design I went with. There's something about a puff sleeve chemise that's just adorable. I pre-clipped the curve of the chemise armhole, matched the centers of the 2 pieces, and pinned them at the center and edges. After that, I divided up each segment to make sure the gathered fabric would be evenly distributed when I pulled the gathering threads. I ran it through my sewing machine to secure my work before giving it a press and a trim over at my ironing board. The best part about having a yoke chemise is that all those raw edges will be enclosed between the fashion fabric and the lining. The edges were clipped and the yoke was turned right side out. I used my point turner to get into those hard to reach corners, and I could not be happier with how this lace looks. The lining around the sleeves was secured by hand. Usually, I listen to audiobooks or podcasts while I sew, but the Little Women musical soundtrack just felt right for this project. Now that the sleeves were both on, it was time to work on the body of the chemise. I stay stitched the front piece before running gathering stitches around the curved sections. The straight center section will stay ungathered for the yoke opening. I clipped my curves and corners before doing my usual divide and conquer gathering technique. Gathering fabric can be time consuming, but it's so satisfying to see those neat little gathers. Or at least that's what I repeatedly tell myself at this stage, so I keep going. Once the curved bits were attached to the fashion fabric, I made sure the overlapping sections of the yoke were the way I wanted them, before clipping them together for later. Next, I attached the back of the chemise to the yoke because, yep, all of that was just for the front. I gave it a press and a trim, and then, well, this happened. Okay. I'm back. You're probably thinking, what do you mean you're back? You've been here the whole time. I have not been. Well, I haven't been in this room for 2 weeks. So the last thing you probably saw, I was working, but what I didn't tell you was I was not feeling 100%, and I was having a hard time concentrating because of that, and it turns out I had COVID again. Back in February 2020, I suspected that I had COVID. And now I feel like I can confirm that I did have COVID because some of the symptoms were very similar. I feel like I had a harder time bouncing back this time, but that's just how it is. Ironically, I was supposed to get my booster like the following weekend, and I didn't because I ended up with COVID on the weekend I was supposed to get my booster. So yeah, I've been out of the sewing room for 2, almost 3 weeks, which is terrifying because I need to get that thing done within like the next 3 weeks. But yeah, I took cough medicine. This is the first day I actually feel like I have any kind of energy. And we also just announced that we're doing the Little Women collaboration, which is what all this is. So I have a nice little boost of energy and motivation boost. So I feel like this is a good time to work on this. And then inevitably crash on the couch in a couple hours. But that's alright because I have to ride this wave of motivation while I have it. So let's finish the chemise. Okay, so I actually didn't remember where I left off. So I had to look back at the instructions. And the part with the sleeves is further on. So by the time I got to the end of the sleeve section, it says go back to step 2 on page 24. So I had to do that, which reminded me that I am now here on step 4. So I'm going to be sewing the side seams together, including the side seams for the sleeves. And it says I can do French seams for that, so I think I will rather than get my serger out. Or pink them or something like that. I never like pinking the seams. It never feels like enough for me. But, I mean, if you do it, that's fine. I have no judgment at all. But I'm just, pinking doesn't do it for me. Anyway, looks like I'm going to be sewing all the way down. And what I did here was, rather than just try and pull it out of the way and just hope it doesn't catch when I'm sewing, even though I know for a fact it probably will catch because that's just my luck, I decided to just fold the bottom seam allowance for the yoke under where it's going to be, eventually hand stitched down, and I just clipped it right into the side seam allowance. So that's just going to catch it, but it'll already be folded to where I want it to be, so hopefully that's okay. Alright, let's do some French seams. You know what I keep meaning to do? A French seam tutorial. You know what I keep forgetting to do? A French seam tutorial. So here's the quick version. You run a narrow straight stitch close to the edge of the fabric with the wrong sides of the fabric together. Press it, clip it, or if that's too annoying, run a rotary cutter over it. Fold it right sides together, press it, and then run another straight stitch, which also gets pressed. It's a lot of steps, but it gives a very neat finish at the end that you never have to worry about unraveling. If you're ever able to just run a single seam from the hem of your sleeve to the hem of your garment, take the opportunity. It's quicker and easier than doing them separately, and oh, so satisfying. Okay, so I accidentally cut into my chemise, so I'm trying to fix it, and while I was fixing it, I accidentally dumped this entire cup of clips over, and they're probably all down there now. Yep, there they are. So I'm gonna clean that up real fast. Okay, so after I picked up all those little clips, I realized that the way I was sewing it wouldn't have worked because it would have just made like a bit of a pucker here in the fabric, and that might not have been very comfortable. So this was my solution to fixing the part of the fabric that I accidentally cut. It's on the back, so hopefully you won't see it, but I mean, if you can, it's not that big of a deal, right? The important thing is that the chemise is going to be wearable and it's not the dress fabric. That's probably the most important thing, that this was not the dress fabric. Alright, so I'm just going to finish off the front seams on this side and then see what the next step is. Despite the fact that I had a tight deadline, I didn't mind that I had to slow down and attach the yoke lining by hand. The repetitive motion is pretty calming, and it's nice whenever you get to literally see how much progress you're making. I finally attached the center of the yoke to the chemise before tackling the hem. The hem of the chemise has tiny little tucks to match the drawers, and I love them so much. I really love when a project has little details, and row of little tucks are, again, so satisfying. On to some finishing touches. I added 2 buttons to the yoke opening, and again, despite the time crunch, decided to finish them by hand. Once I confirmed the button placement, I couldn't be bothered to take the chemise off, so I just sewed them on while I was wearing it. The only thing left was the sleeve cuffs, which of course called for more gathering, but again, it was worth it. These little puff sleeves are adorable. For once, I acknowledged the time crunch and I finished the cuffs by machine. I removed the gathering threads and we're done! Making these undergarments may not have been a top priority, but I am so glad I took the time to make them. I had no way of knowing this at the time, but this ended up being my go-to chemise over the last 2 years, and I absolutely love it, and it's held up really well despite multiple washings. Thank you all for watching this video. I know it's been a while since I posted, and I'm excited to finally post all of the Meg videos, especially since I continued to add to this project over the last 2 years. Oh, since this is a little women-themed video, let me know who your favorite March sister is in the comments. Special thanks to my ever-supported patrons on Patreon. Your support and input on my projects over the last few years has been invaluable. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you give it a like if you did. Since I haven't posted in a while, those likes and comments will really help push this video out so more people see it. And look, I actually remembered to take photos at the end. So fun fact, I actually took these photos the day before I ended up getting a big haircut. Which is funny because I took the final Meg photos like an hour before I went to get a big haircut. So I guess that's just a theme for me. Anyway, that's all from me for now. I'll see you next time. Bye!